This episode of the WP Minute is brought to you by OmniSend. Do you sell stuff online? Then you need to meet OmniSend, the powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. OmniSend is that good and effective. You probably know the struggles of investing in digital ads with no guarantee it'll bring money back into your pocket. Use OmniSend and you won't have to find creative ways to make your audience notice you. You just talk straight to them. Use OmniSend pop-ups to build a contact list, then send campaigns directly to people who already want to hear from you. Automate everything with OmniSend. Just set it up once, sit back, and watch those sales roll in. If this sounds too good to be true, check it out at omnisend.com. Visit omnisend.com. Tell them thanks for sponsoring the WP Minute. Eric Karkovac, welcome to the WP Minute.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt.
Not really welcome you to you are here. You are the essence of the WP Minute, the man behind all of the freelancer articles that we're going to discuss today in this nice little year-end recap. But it is always a pleasure to have you here. We're chatting about one of your losing teams, the Saints, before we hit record, about them Orioles.
I think they're going to be good again. They're spending some money this year. I think that's going to be a good thing.
What we're going to talk about today is some of the great articles that Eric has handpicked from his stack of work that he's done for the WP Minute over 2024, some of his top 5 articles. Wherever you're listening, watching this, if you have a favorite article that Eric has written on the WP Minute, go ahead and share it, post it, put it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We have 5 articles that you're pulling out today, and one of them is obviously going to be talking about Automatic versus WP Engine. We just saw a judge rule on the injunction case. We'll save that to the end because, we're not just going to give it all away up at the front, right, Eric? We don't want to just, give them that great controversial news right at the start. We'll save that to the end of today's conversation. When I asked you, Eric, to go back and pick your favorite articles from the WP Minute, what were you thinking? What made these top 5 your favorite?
I think all of them address some pressing issues in the WordPress ecosystem and community. And I really think all of them have an impact on freelancers as well. So it's stuff that maybe we don't talk about other than the WP Engine stuff. Things that we don't talk about necessarily every day, but things I think that we run into quite often when we're using WordPress and we're working on client sites.
You selected, here's the articles you selected. How does Automatic versus WP Engine impact freelancers? We're going to save that one to the end. Why small WordPress UI changes are a big deal. Go ahead and use WordPress your way, which was one of my favorite articles from 2024. Using WordPress often means subscriptions, lots of them. We're actually going to start with that one since we're on the tail end of the holiday sale that all of us sort of jump into. And then data liberation needs to happen within WordPress too. Oof, that's an interesting one amidst all of this WP Engine stuff, and especially that sort of like real vocal public call to action from Matt about data liberation. It was sort of like one of the milestone things that he had said over to 2024, where people are like, okay, cool, sounds good. How do we get there? Who's going to do it first? Which platforms? And it's certainly taking a backseat to all of this controversy. I want to frame for the WordPress freelancers out there. I've been recording a session on what people are really struggling with WordPress and their freelance business or their agency, right? Freelancers, boutique agencies. Of course, the WP Engine stuff is super difficult, right, to navigate.
Yeah.
Stressful. But I'm wondering if people have been seeing it have an impact on their business or the future of their business, like our clients referring to it, our clients pulling back because of this thing. From your angle, Eric, I know we were going to talk about like your article specifically, but I want to talk about the future of freelancing and agency stuff for a second into 2025. Has this been a challenge for your business? Have your clients said, oh, I heard about this WP Engine thing. I don't like what I'm hearing. Has that come across your radar at all?
It has come across a few different scenarios. In one scenario, I have a client on WP Engine. He wasn't too thrilled about the situation when he couldn't update his plugins due to WP Engine being blocked from WordPress.org. So we definitely had some conversations around that. And there was another scenario where, we're looking to move an enterprise site to a new host. And that became kind of a real concern there. Even if we don't move it to WP Engine per se, you still have to wonder when you're picking a host, okay, well, what's next? Is WP Engine just the first of many that are going to get this kind of a situation? So it's definitely there in people's minds every day, I think, even with advanced custom fields.
What about did the discussion of just simply using WordPress come up with this enterprise client, or are they already built in WordPress, so there's no turning back now? But
yeah.
did they say something like, oh, maybe we should be going Drupal or something else?
Nothing like that, thankfully. But it was, there just is that extra uncertainty when you're looking to move hosts, and it has to be a factor now. I think you have to really weigh heavily about where you're moving your site, just in case something should go wrong.
One of the challenges from running an agency, again, ran one for a decade, and I still see and hear the same challenges people are having. Hard to find clients, lots more competition. We got this AI thing happening these days. I'm really leaning into advising people, and I've been doing this even for the WP Minute, right? Like finding sponsorships look, business is difficult across the board. I don't know many businesses that simply print money unless you're in energy, and you're drilling for oil. Like I don't know of any business that just comes easy. And I'm really leaning into experience, human experience. Like what are the things that really connect that you can't find in AI, right? You and I have had these discussions. The WP Minute, writing content, hey, tutorial content is great, but tutorial content that is drawn from a real experience, like a real experience that you had dealing with a client, implementing a solution, and then training somebody, teaching somebody how to do that, that's the future of content for me anyway, at least for the next couple of years. But human experience, connecting with people, that is customer service. I guess the essence of customer service is what I'm thinking people should be leaning into if they're starting an agency or freelance business headed into 2025. What are your thoughts on finding customers, trying to find a leg up on just the competition and everything happening in the space?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about experience, because that's how we learn things. I mean, you can type any question you want into ChatGPT, but is the answer going to be correct? Is it going to apply to your use case? Those type of things are, novel to humans. I mean, that's what we do, right? So I think if you can show that you are responsive and you take care of your customers and that you have, that experience and know-how, I think that's going to bode well. And I also think sometimes in the freelance game, we tend to, chase clients that maybe aren't the best fit for us. We talk about volume more than quality. And in that case, I'd rather have 5 like really good clients that pay well and communicate well than have 25 clients that are substandard in paying and a pain to deal with. I think everybody's got to set up their business to focus on where they want to be and how they want to work and who they want to work with. Don't chase things just because they're there. Focus on, achievable goals and show people what you can do and why it's a benefit to them to have you on board.
Yeah. Your outlook for 2025, are you shifting things up? Do you have any sort of like goals or objectives? Like, are you trying to find the quality clients headed into 2025, at least for your freelance development work? I know you're multifaceted. You're a writer, an author, a best-selling author, and a WordPress developer. But do you have any goals on like finding the right customers? Do you need to go find new customers? What's it look like for Eric in 2025?
I try to be careful about how many new customers I bring in a year. I have a lot who have been with me for over a decade, and I try to keep those relationships going strong. I think one of my goals this year is actually going to be to focus on being a little more proactive with those clients that I already have, talking to them about things like, upgrading PHP, making sure your site's compatible. Maybe it's been a while since there's been a redesign, something like that, that brings in revenue, but doesn't require me to go out and hunt new clients and, spend a ton on marketing or things like that. I think sometimes we also forget, the resources we already have available to us, and those client relationships we have can be beneficial for, not just after till the site launches, they can be beneficial for years to come if you have a good relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think that, that's where you're leaning into, again, that human interaction. There's so many, customers that it's easy to forget your customer and to engage with them. I know it sounds silly when you say it out loud, like, well, how would I'm there. I'm hosting their website. I'm updating their plugins. That's all, great. And that's all like on the technical side, but I'll tell you that the client doesn't see that, right? They don't know. They're not looking at the updates, right? And maybe you're sending them a report. Okay, fine. They're looking at a bunch of data, or graphs or logs that you send them and say, oh yeah, pretty you say. That's totally different than opening up a conversation like, how's your business going? What else do you need on the WordPress site? What else do you need in social or content? Anything I can do to help, establish this site for you, and that just enhances a relationship, which is crazy to even have to say that headed into 2025, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing that folks need to lean into, I think, for future success.
Yeah, think about it. Everybody's already got a website out there pretty much, right? Except for maybe a startup or, something new out there. So how do you help people maximize what they have, and how do you, capitalize on that while also helping them?
Let's dive into your first article today. For those of you watching, you can see the quick title, featured image. And before we hopped on the call, Eric, you'll love to know I whipped these 5 articles through ChatGPT and I said, pull a quote from it. Something that I could quickly use as a visual to have on the video side of today's conversation. So the first article is using WordPress often means subscriptions, a lot of them. Here's a quote from Eric. Theoretically speaking, you could have a dozen subscriptions from a dozen vendors. Each has a different pricing model, which is so true in the WordPress world. We're coming off the tail end of, all of the Thanksgiving, Black Friday, holiday sales that, sort of just rush into the market, 50% off. I know we were doing 50% off at Gravity Forms, tons of people purchasing Gravity Forms either for the first time or for their clients. It's an amazing time to be a WordPress plugin company or theme company. First off, did you pick up any new deals these last few weeks?
I was so proud of myself. I did not buy anything new. I did take advantage of a renewal on a couple of things that had a discount with them. So I was happy about that. But usually my problem is I start seeing, I can use this, I could really use that. And then the plugins just kind of sit there. So I was kind of proud that I did not do it this year. But I do have a ton of subscriptions. I
did pull out a poll. I should have looked at this first, but I did put out a poll during the holiday sale. And surprisingly, a lot of people voted. I just asked, like, are you buying it for the first time, buying a plugin or theme for the first time? Are you doing it and are you going to use it right away? That's what it was. I think it's like, you use it right away. Are you holding on to it for future? And there was a surprising amount of people who responded that they were just buying things to maybe eventually use them. It's not something I've ever done, but I can see why. Like, I can see why people have an attraction to a particular product. I might use that someday. I might as well scoop it up for 50% off now, or whatever the deal is. That makes total sense. Why did this article make your top 5?
I think it's an ongoing kind of struggle for freelancers too, because when you look at it, part of the deal is, dealing with clients, they're not always up for more subscriptions. And I think this is a hard thing for us as freelancers. We have to kind of describe why those are necessary. Like, think of a client that has a WooCommerce store. Okay, they may not understand why a certain shipping method isn't available right away in a default install, or why they can't have a customized product in a certain way. It takes those extra subscriptions to get it done, and I think that kind of becomes a problem in WordPress as you scale. For a small site, it's not that big of a deal. You can put Gravity Forms on there, great product, put it on, get your forms all set up. But what happens as you scale and you need more and more functionality, and all of a sudden you're managing, 20 subscriptions, and they're all renewing at different times, and they all have different rates, and sometimes they go up in price and you hadn't budgeted ahead for that. So I think it's something that we need to think about in how we work with clients. First of all, do we really need that subscription? Do we really need what that product is giving us? And second of all, I think it also is something that, we've had this debate forever about a WordPress app store. Not sure that's ever going to happen, but at least not on WordPress.org. But
oh, you say that, Eric, but you have no idea.
I have no idea that is for sure. But especially after this year, I don't know anything anymore.
Yeah.
but it is something that freelancers have to deal with on almost a daily basis. Every site we build, there's a handful of subscriptions, it seems like, and that's great to we want to support the developers. We want to make sure that they are getting paid for their hard work, but it does become a management nightmare after a while. So I think that's something that's probably not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's just it's a wild space. This morning I stumbled upon a plugin. It just randomly, I actually went to go check on Advanced Custom Fields to see if it was back in the repo, and I just quickly pulled up the repo, and I just saw some other plugin that caught my eye. I can't remember the name of it right now. It was Gutenberg block collection. I was like, oh, this name looks cool. This icon looks cool. I clicked on it, never seen it before. 7,000 active installs. And I clicked on they have, of course, they list everything on the repo page, and there's a pro subscription. So learn more. I click it. I just want to see how much they charge, and it's like the typical $47, $97, $147 pricing. And I'm just looking at it, going, wow, how did WordPress just land on this pricing? Like across the board, $47, $97, $147. It just seems to be like the recurring trend for any kind of, theme or plugin shop that has launched within the last decade. And that was interesting to see. But then there's like the flip side of it, where there are some providers out there where, pricing is different when it goes after the first year. So it's like, yeah, get a deal now, but next year, it's like 3 times the price. And that is also something that can happen that can surprise the consumer. So it's not even just like the amount of vendors somebody has to deal with, but like you said, it's just this variety of pricing. And some places out there are, the price is not what it seems, when you first buy it, which is not fun for the consumer either. So I can understand why consumers, like average users, can freak out about this stuff.
Yeah, it gets to the point where, you almost have to just look on a daily basis of who's doing what with the things you subscribe to, because they can change quite a bit. I had a plugin do that to me earlier this year. It turned out that they tripled the price after the introductory year, and I didn't see any mention of it in any of their official emails. It actually came to me in a PayPal email that was generated after my purchase. There's a little note inside that PayPal email. It says, after the first year, you will be charged X amount. And it was like, really? There was no documentation, in the official things sent from the developer. And I was like, that's probably not going to win over a lot of friends.
Yeah, it doesn't help the consumer, but I'm sure it satisfies the legal side of things.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to the next article. Data liberation needs to happen within WordPress 2. Quote, the process can be messy. We may need to grab data from different database tables and columns. That may also encompass multiple plugins. That is definitely a quote pulled from AI in the first 2 moments of hitting record. This is why you don't trust AI to anything. Data liberation is certainly not going to be easy. Pivotal moment, like we were mentioning before, we heard Mullenweg talk about it. We thought data liberation was going to be, I thought okay, makes sense. Who's going to rally the troops to do this? I haven't seen many troops rallying to do this. What does happen within WordPress 2 mean to you?
So what I'm talking about is kind of what this AI quote is, actually. We're talking about, data liberation originally came about when we're talking about moving from Wix or Squarespace or Shopify to WordPress. Having tools that can allow us to easily grab that content, put it into our WordPress install. But there is also an issue with working within WordPress as well. Say you have an e-commerce site or a membership site. You may want to pull information about a user's purchases from WooCommerce, but then you may also want that same report to have some of their MemberPress data or whatever membership software they're using, or maybe they're using an LMS in there too. So how do you grab data from all these plugins and combine it into one report? That's pretty heavy stuff to do right now. There's no plugin that I've seen that can reliably do that. Now, I will tell you, I did cheat with AI on a project this year for a client that needed something like this. I had it write me a custom MySQL query to take from these different tables and to put everything into a CSV file that I could export and give to the client. It actually worked, but it was, even with AI, it was a few hours and, a lot of back and forth trying to perfect it. So I think when you're looking at, getting the data from your WordPress website, it's not easy, unless you're going with the standard WooCommerce reports that are included in a default install. You're really going to have to work hard to try and get everything you want. And that's a shame because our sites hold so much valuable data. And if we have access to it, that allows us to make better decisions. But, the first part is getting it and putting it all together, which is kind of an impossibility right now with the way things are set up.
Yeah. There's so much things I love and hate about WordPress and where we're at, in the history of WordPress, particularly now. But when I first saw this, I was like, what would be great? And I've talked about this before, and this is well before, we've been challenged with this WP Engine stuff, but I've often challenged the idea of Five for the Future and giving back to WordPress and, doing, embarking on projects like data liberation. I've often challenged the sentiment of it by challenging other brands to actually do it. You could boil it down to just like calling Matt's bluff. I mean, it's a pretty harsh statement, but I would say it's calling Matt's bluff. And I've said this about Five for the Future. Hey, look, if you want, if bigger brands, let's say like GoDaddy is what I reference in one of my more formidable articles, Keys to the Kingdom, where it's like, look, GoDaddy could just say, here's $20 million, here's Juan Soto money every single year for developers that just come in and commit to WordPress. What would Matt do if 100 GoDaddians showed up to commit to WordPress? I think, on the surface, I think he would smile and be like, oh, that's great. But I also think that he would be challenged with how the direction of WordPress is managed, because you'd have, an army, a troop of people coming in to commit to WordPress. Well, I think there's going to be some deeper discussions going on, I think anyway. And the same thing for data liberation. It's like, hey, I think, when he put it out there, he would say, we would need more people to come to WordPress, which I'm not arguing against. Sure, yeah, absolutely. But I would also look at that as an opportunity for, let's say, a Wix or a Squarespace or a Webflow to come in and go, oh, you know what? We're going to make our data liberation tool, and we're actually going to commit this to this project. Which at the end, like both camps, at the end, hopefully the consumer wins, right? When you have these things, so 100 GoDaddies come in to call the bluff. Guess who wins? The end user. Which is, that's the goal, I think, for open source, particularly challenged again at the end of this year. But I see these moments and I'm like, damn, I wish there would be more adoption from the outside. When Matt sort of plants his flag on these ideas and these concepts, which largely look to maybe influence and benefit himself and WordPress, I also look at the outside and go, hey guys, Wix, you got an opportunity here to jump in and make something. And guess who wins? We do, which is ultimately what you want. A bunch of freelancers who say, oh, great, Wix made a tool to migrate from WordPress to Wix, and it's open source, and it's right here. So if I ever have a customer that's like, this WordPress thing isn't for me, boom, I can go from WordPress to Wix or Wix to WordPress. Would be amazing. Amazing flow of data, which I guess as I speak about it out loud is the idea, is the goal for this stuff. We just need that adoption. And I haven't seen it. I hope for it in 2025, but it's a challenge for sure to get people on board.
Yeah, I don't know how much attention it's getting right now.
Yeah,
with all the other things going on. So,
state of the word coming up. Maybe it'll be the only topic left.
I'm sure there will be other things talked about on that particular day.
Speaking of, go ahead and use WordPress your way. Like I said before, one of my favorite articles, experimentation is one of the best ways to learn. Maybe WordPress is more like life than we thought. I'll try not to drown this conversation in AI discussion, which I've been talking about a lot lately, but I have found a new appreciation for WordPress as a monolithic app, that it has 20 years of history, 20 years of thousands, tens of thousands of people committing code to it. I can pull it off the shelf and just run with it, which 6 months ago in my head was like, boy, this is old and lethargic. And then I started building things with AI and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, look how fast I can build like these little ad hoc React.js apps or the React based apps. And what it really had me looking at WordPress, the context of is I can do this stuff in AI, just like you were doing the SQL stuff. It took you a few hours. You were probably, pretty impressed with it, but that's it. It's gone in the moment, right? Like I build a little React app, it's gone because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I built it. It exists, but there's nobody critically thinking about it. No one's patching this app that I made. It's gone. It's awesome in the moment, but it's gone. Whereas WordPress, you look at and go, there's community, there's a core team, there's a vision, kinda, and somebody is caring for this thing. So it might be, air quotes, slow and lethargic and a 20-year-old technology, but people are caring for it and improving it every day. And that's what I've found through my journey of learning how to code with AI. It allows me to look at WordPress and say I appreciate it, and I can do all these different things with WordPress, which again just reinforces my love for WordPress. Your thoughts on the article?
So I think we often get into these debates, and you see it all over social media, that there's one particular way you have to do something. Only one page builder you should use, or forms plugin, or whatever it is. And people get stuck in these debates. And my thought on that is WordPress is like the ultimate blank canvas for whatever you want to build. Is it always the right choice for everything you want to build? That's debatable. But there are so many different ways to build the same thing with WordPress, which is good and bad. But I think it also lends to learning and experience. I can build a WooCommerce site a certain way, and maybe it breaks somewhere down the line. And I've learned that, oh no, I probably shouldn't have done that. Next time I'll know to do this. And I think that's kind of how my journey with WordPress has been. I'm a great repository of things I've done wrong and what not to do again. So I've kind of, banked these things in my memory, and I think, okay, I know how to build this now. I know exactly what I need to do. And when new things come out, I'm going to try it. I'm probably going to break it, but I'll learn from it. So I think sometimes we have a little bit of gatekeeping in the community about certain ways to do things and certain tools you have to use or you can't use. I think we should just let it up to the individual. That's what WordPress is for. It's not meant to be used in one specific way. Even Matt Mullen will, agree with that, I imagine, that, you're building whatever you want, however you want. And as long as you reach your goal, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, there's a whole world of, again, I don't want to drown this in AI stuff, but I've been learning it. I've been learning how to code outside of WordPress. And what I have found is this massive world of frameworks, and libraries, and components in just the React world. Never mind, Laravel or Ruby on Rails. Like, I have been insulated inside of WordPress for so long because it's been my career largely, and just thinking HTML, CSS, PHP, JavaScript, MySQL database, manage WordPress hosting. It really hasn't expanded beyond that. And I finally, looked on the other side of the fence and saw that a lot of that same discussions, but more importantly, that idea of gatekeeping is true everywhere, right? It's not just in WordPress, but certainly as I look to these other platforms, and I'll try to distill this down into like one concise thought is what AI has been doing for me to build these little apps is like the same thing that page builders were allowing people to do 15 years ago when they first came onto the scene, like Visual Composer, Site Origin, Page Lines, those types of things, where people looked at you and said, whoa, 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 you're doing it wrong. Page Builder? Get out of here with that stuff, right? You can't be in this room with us. You have to do it by hand. You must crack open functions PHP and put in your stuff there and create a new theme and a child theme and do all this stuff. And there was gatekeeping there because people had learned how to do it for the previous 5 to 10 years. And they were telling people, no, this new thing, you can't have that. That's not for us. And now I'm seeing the same thing happen when I start looking and trying to learn, how do I do this thing in React? And you just see people like, oh, must be just, another AI generated app. It's like, well, man, I'm trying to learn this stuff, which is what people were doing with page builders. They were just trying to I think the person who's doing it the right way is just trying to learn this stuff, and I think that experience can happen across all technologies. We just see it, primarily in WordPress because, that's where we live.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, everybody's got to learn some way, somehow. And, to make myself sound really old, I mean, I can remember when Microsoft Front Page came out. I'm like, hell no, man, I'm writing code by hand. I don't need you to put in my blink tag for me. Get out of here. Let me do that myself. And, you adapt. You adapt over time. You learn, and you're trying to find ways to be more efficient. Sometimes a page builder is going to do that for you. Sometimes it's not. The great thing is we have options. We don't have to limit ourselves. And that's kind of what WordPress is all about, in my opinion.
Thanks to Front Page, it helped me build my high school website back in the day when our computer class, I think it was just called computer class back then. I don't think there was a real label for it, but that was one of our projects, is to redesign the high school website. And we did, thanks to Front Page. Next article. Speaking of things that change, why small WordPress UI changes are a big deal. The problem is a lack of communication. It's not intentional. However, changing the UI without educating users is likely to backfire. Quote from Eric, why small WordPress UI changes are a big deal. I can tell you one thing. When they moved the featured image location, my muscle memory of writing a blog post and scrolling down and to the right to click on the featured image, I was like, what happened? Where is it? And even still, a few months later, I'm still like, oh yeah, the featured image is up here now. I got to remember that. UI changes even small UI changes are a big deal. Why this article?
Well, funny enough, that's the exact problem that I ran into with the featured image changing. I was training a client actually at the time. I had no idea that the featured image had shifted up and to the right of the block editor. So I'm trying to find out where the featured image is, and I'm going back to that same old spot that I've been doing for 10 years. And I look like a fool in front of my client because I don't know where the featured image is. Yeah. And then I happen to spot this button in the upper right. I'm like, oh, okay. And the thing is, there's got to be a way to communicate that. And something I bring up in the article is even a tool tip when you first log in after installing that new version where things have changed. A little tour. When you install WordPress these days, you still get that little tour of Gutenberg every time you go into the block editor for the first time. Why not be able to do that when something significant has changed like that? It just seems to me that we would save ourselves a lot of hassle, a lot of support requests. The WordPress org support forms would be probably a little less trafficked in that moment. We just need to do a better job of communicating when things change and why they've changed. I think that would be a huge help because we have client sites to take care of. And, if we don't know if something's changed, we're not going to be able to inform our clients.
Yeah. Just to pull back the curtain of the WP Minute, that's on the YouTube channel. That is one of the things that I try to do in my content is I try to get real ahead of the new WordPress theme coming. So I'll try to, this communication thing is super important, like you said, and it's also a challenge. So I don't throw it all at the core team. Not saying that you did, but I'm just saying in general, sometimes on Twitter, you'll see, everybody just attacking everyone for these changes. Not that, of course I've been guilty of it in the past, but I try to get ahead of things like, here comes the new WordPress theme. Literally, here's the announcement and here's what we can expect from it. And then I'll do a follow-up video as it starts to get into either an alpha release or certainly into a beta release. This is the theme. Here's how it's changing. This is what you should you should expect. And then after it launches, it's here's how to use it, and then here's a bunch of like use cases around it. So I'll do like 5 or 6 videos around a core theme. And I know from folks at like Ann McCarthy from Automatic, Rich Tabor, Nick Diego, a lot of these folks will reach out to try to educate like the YouTubers and the other content creators to try to like resonate with that across their audience, right? I know there'll be new renewed efforts for WordPress.org, YouTube content and things like that. And it is this fine balance, because oftentimes you can just go right into GitHub and be like, I don't like this upcoming feature. How can we can we like reshape this or rethink how we're going to implement this? But the average user is not going to be able to do that, nor do they care, right? So there's like, on one hand, there is opportunity to help affect this change. Oftentimes when they release the new theme, they'll release the Figma files and you'll see people designing it. Like you'll log into the Figma file, you'll see people shaping it and doing their thing with the theme. And that's a perfect opportunity to start leaving feedback to say like, yeah, I don't really like how where this is headed, or this is a great thing. I think both critical, so where I'm looking for, not constructive feedback or critical feedback, it can happen in both places. So that WordPress is nice because it does have that ability, but you just have to find it and have the time for it, which again is challenging for the average user. We're going to move on to the next article. Pull this up. This is the big one. This is the one everyone's been waiting for, Eric.
Uh-oh.
Let's share it up onto the screen. How does Automatic versus WP Engine impact freelancers? Another lovely AI quote from Eric to describe the tumult, in a word, uncertainty. We don't know what's coming next. That makes it hard to commit to the next project, let alone long-term investment in a platform. Oh boy, has the WP Engine stuff been a thorn in our side. From WordCamp US to we're heading into State of the Word, almost Christmas time. We just had that injunction come down, or the ruling from the court, basically saying that, look, you have to give back WP Engine's access to WordPress.org. You have to give them back their plugin. I don't even know how that is going to happen. They have to do it within 72 hours. This happened yesterday. You have to restore access. You have to remove the checkbox from the infamous checkbox that you have a relationship with WP Engine before you log into WordPress.org. Restore WP Engine's access and control of ACF. It has been a wild ride. We hinted a little bit about it, of how it's impacted your business. But I know specifically you're a big ACF user. How did it impact you there with developing sites and communicating that with your customers?
I can't say I really did a whole lot on that part of it. I've been an ACF user ever since Elliot Condon built it many, many years ago. And I've continued to do it. I love ACF blocks. There's a tutorial on the WP Minute to show you how to make your own ACF blocks if you're interested. But it's something I've kept in mind, though, because, what if somehow that plugin fails, or what if, it can't be supported anymore? I'm out of luck because I've got, probably 100 sites that have some component of ACF, implemented. So it's not something I've really been talking to clients about because I don't know what to tell them. How do you explain this to a person that doesn't know? But the tool is, and I've been a pro user for a long, long time. So it hasn't really affected, the ability to grab the pro version. Those updates continue to roll just like they always have. It's been the free version that, has had the hiccup in how you update it and where you get the updates from. But, it's something that, we have to think about on everything we do now, and I'm sure Matt Mullenweg did not intend for it to get to the point where we're second guessing every decision we make as freelancers. But when one company undergoes this kind of scrutiny, well, what's to stop the next one? I mean, there have been previous issues with GoDaddy. Years ago, GoDaddy was a parasitic company. Pantheon had a run-in with Automatic years ago over a WordCamp sponsorship. There's these things happen, and you don't want it to affect your clients. You don't want to get in the middle of it, but there we are. We're here. We're in the middle of it, whether we want to or not. And so that's something that for freelancers, we have to kind of to take that with us every day and kind of, scrutinize what we're doing to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to not have to rip apart our sites or, having to move on from tools that we're using.
Has it ever crossed your mind, like when you first started seeing this stuff come about, like, maybe I should look at another CMS? Has that started to like cross your radar, or do you have a backup plan for WordPress?
Backup plan for WordPress? No, I can't say that I do. I'm interested in trying other things. I've tried a few other CMSs over the years. I honestly haven't been impressed just because I like to build things the way I want to build them, and WordPress allows me to do that. And as long as it keeps allowing me to do that, we're all cool. But, if it gets in the way of, being able to take care of my client sites, if it gets in the way of my ability to make a living with it, then, you have to reconsider. But at this point, I think, I'm still fully on board, but, that's subject to change, I guess, based on, whatever way the wind blows in 2025.
Yeah. Watch this space, because I will be announcing a new project soon about exploring some other content management systems. And I've been down the path really talking to people about these alternative, I say alternative, they're popular CMS platforms, that are doing things their way. And it is eye-opening, to hear. And of course, like the biggest challenge that I have found, like having these discussions aside from, folks who are focusing on like Drupal or Ghost, is that, a lot of them aren't pure 100% GPL, community driven, but having, talked to a lot of these other CMS platforms recently, I get why they don't do it. I get why they don't do it from a business sense, largely to avoid things like this. Obviously WordPress is just at a massive scale. So, these things really become much more human problems than they are like real technical problems in my eyes. But for a lot of these maybe like indie mess, solutions, their licensing matters to them for the sustainability of their business. No different than, hey, you need to buy a license for this plugin, for support and these pro features. I don't mind that another CMS is charging a few $100 a year for a license to get access to their CMS. It just means that they'll be in business to continue to support this thing, and you'll know the path that they're on, hopefully. And, I think that that's just common like business practice. And sometimes we can get a little jaded about like the free and open source and GPL nature of WordPress. Massive benefit, no doubt. But sometimes it can sort of like close our eyes to, some of these either alternatives or things that might be better solutions for the particular client that you might be facing, or the vertical that you're in to support. So yeah, anyway, watch this space. New project coming soon. Eric, it's always fantastic hanging out with you, and especially when we're recapping your 5 favorite articles from the WP Minute. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. I've had a great time.
You can find Eric's writings I almost said every week, but 2 to 3 articles a month, every other week, almost every week, at the WPMinute.com. The best place to subscribe, the WPMinute.com/subscribe. Jump on that mailing list. You'll find Eric's writing, some thoughts from me, a roundup of content that we do here at the WP Minute. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.